spaces. I guess like different areas, I'm assuming. This has to be a parking place. Alright, welcome everybody to another Body Odor vlog. I'm recording this on a Saturday, even though I actually recorded the video like last week on a Sunday. This was, I think it's called Aleta State River Park. It's actually like 15 minutes away from me. And I really had a good time just walking around the state park. Actually, at that time, I woke up on a Sunday and I got there around like 8:20, 8:30 a.m. on a Sunday. And there were some cars there and stuff like that. But it still felt like abandoned. And I didn't really have to pass around or pass by anybody, except maybe toward the later end. I had to pass by just one woman. But yeah, it felt pretty good. Just get outside. Just be in a park where you feel like you're all, like the park is all to yourself in a way. I mean, there were people all the way to the left of me. I guess they were doing canoeing. I saw a lot of people just there doing canoeing. And though I would have to admit that when I actually ventured into the park some more, there were people playing loud music, which sort of ruined the vibe for me. Because, you just want to have this like calm, peaceful event with nature, I guess. And hearing somebody play like, what was that song they were playing? Play that funky music, white boy. Play that funky music, right? Or you hear somebody playing reggaeton music or some shit and you don't know what they're talking about, and they're just blasting it as loud as they can on a Sunday, early Sunday morning. I don't want to hear that shit. I just want to experience nature. This is a very interesting event, or a very interesting video capture. I saw this sign where it was talking about alligators being within this state park and how they feed on wild animals. And basically the sign was saying, if you actually see an alligator, don't go near it and don't feed the alligator at all. And I'm like, holy shit, I didn't know there was just like free roaming alligators around this park. That scared the shit out of me. It made me think that one of these alligators was gonna snatch my ass up while I was walking through a trail or something like that. But that didn't happen, so that's good news. I'm still free of any type of alligator attacks, so that's good news. But what is there to talk about body odor related? Anything to talk about body odor related? I guess there is something to talk about. I talked about this a little bit, but I have been, maybe for the past 30 days, been eating early in the morning and stopping my, I guess, intermittent fasting at like 2 p.m. And I feel that helps. Because I've noticed that, at least for my condition, if I ever eat late at night and then I wake up in the morning, no matter if I ate healthy, I get more noticeable reactions. Even if I ate healthy, I just ate like, I don't know, the same thing I usually eat every day, which is like a sweet potato, I eat rice, I eat salad, etc., etc. I would still get more noticeable reactions. But I did notice that when I eat early in the morning and I stop eating like at 2 p.m., the reactions are harder to pick up, I guess. The reactions are harder to pick up. So I feel like that played a factor. And when I start to think about things like that, I start to think about like many things that doctors or dietitians recommend, because when I'm at work, I listen to a lot of like things on YouTube. I watch sometimes I watch like podcasts, but sometimes I watch podcasts or presentations that are diet related. And there's some videos that were talking about how you're supposed to eat before 6 p.m. or before sundown, because if you eat after sundown, like that messes up your circadian rhythm and you're not able to digest food well enough. So when I heard that, that gave me the idea that maybe I should try to just do things that I know is going to improve my digestion. So eating before 6 p.m. was one of them. That's why I set the intermittent fasting from like somewhere around like 6:30 to 2 p.m. So then I stop eating at 2 p.m. I do feel that there's less noticeable reactions. Another thing I do is I take more digestive enzymes. I've been taking digestive enzymes, and I also take betaine. I think it's called betaine hydrochloride with pepsin, and that's also supposed to help with your digestion or breaking down the certain foods within your stomach. I think it's supposed to improve your stomach acid. The betaine hydrochloride is supposed to improve it or something like that. But overall, it's supposed to improve your digestion. So not only do I eat very early and stop eating very early, I also take betaine and digestive enzymes to break down the food better. And obviously, I don't eat meat, but I have been eating egg whites. And I've also been eating soy. I've been eating a lot of soy for the last 30 days because I was like curious. I really want to, with this diet if you ever try to follow the T-Mile diet, it makes you feel like you can't really, it makes you feel like you're just wasting away. Because you're always just scared to try new things. Oh, I don't know if I should try this. I don't know if I should try that. It's one thing if it's like, okay, I hope you didn't hear that car in the back of me. This is why, I don't know if you heard that car in the back of me, but it's all right. Like maybe 7 o'clock in the morning at this moment. And it's so frustrating to get some audio out where you don't hear background noises like cars driving in the back of me, or making so much fucking noise. It's annoying. That's why I want to leave. I want to get somewhere out. Get out somewhere where I'm just not around people that much. I've been really trying for maybe the past couple of weeks or so. I've been trying to pursue getting a remote job, because I haven't really talked about my current job or things that have been happening for the last month or so within my current job. And I don't even think I mentioned this. Okay, so I guess I can go back the past couple of months. So I would say that in the past couple of months, or maybe 3 months ago, there was this developer who abruptly quit the job. And the reason why he quit the job is because he was constantly being hassled by the project manager from our job. And apparently there was just this one time where the last straw where he couldn't take the criticism or couldn't take him, I don't want to say lambasting, just, I guess, lecturing him to the point that he exploded on his ass and then just abruptly quit, And I wasn't actually there when that happened. What actually happened to me is that happened on a Friday, and I usually leave early on a Friday, so I wasn't there when this whole, it was supposedly really chaotic, and he was just giving it to him, He probably had a lot of pent up anger and was like, you're a bitch. I don't know what he said, because again, this developer, I'll say his name is Alex. This developer is very soft spoken, and he's very, I guess, I don't know, sensitive, I guess. I'd say he's very soft-spoken and sensitive. So when this project manager would just say certain things that made him seem like he was incompetent, I think it got to him. And since he's not the type of person that's like assertive, all those little comments that he has made over the course of months just start building up and building up inside of him until one day he probably was just like, fuck it, and then just gave it to him. And then he quit. Why is that important? Because I feel like that developer was one of the critical, I guess, the most important developers within the team, because he built this software that allows documents to be processed and analyzed and verified to determine if certain things are present within documents. And since he built or I guess he was like the prime architect for building this type of feature, him leaving was a big deal. And then, but shortly after that, maybe 3 weeks later after that, then we started to downsize. I mean, so 2 people got laid off. One of them was some type of financial guy, and the other guy was like a marketing. I really want to say their names, but okay, I'll just say one's name is Tommy, and the other name is Lonnie. So Lonnie, the financial guy, yeah, he was just basically doing, keeping track with what's going on with the finances or whatever. And he was like an older gentleman. I think he was from Venezuela. I don't really have anything negative or positive to say about him. I barely had too many interactions with him in general. But then there's this guy, Lonnie, or what's his name, Tommy? No, Lonnie. Anyways, the marketing guy. The marketing guy was a bitch, and I was so glad that he left. I was so glad that he got the boot. They axed his ass or laid him off, whatever you want to say. The reason why he was such a bitch is because this motherfucker. He would intentionally murmur things about me smelling bad right when I'm like close to him. Like, let's say like I'm in the office, I'm walking into the office, and he would be like right next to, I don't know, the printing press, and I'm like walking past this printing area. Like he would murmur it loud enough for me to actually hear him say some shit, but at the same time he still murmured it. So if I said, "Hey, did you say something?" He's like, "Oh, I didn't say anything." But I remember this one time I was like walking past him, and he was at the printing press and shit. He was like, "Jesus, Jermaine, you smell like shit." He said it like under his breath, and he said it like that. And then I would encounter other instances where he would just like do these under breath comments to the point that he can say it in a very low tone, so that if I ever question him on it, he can't really still say, "Oh, I never said anything." It's one of those types of situations. So I always thought this guy was a little bitch. So I'm like glad he got axed, and it was actually shocking, to be honest, because on that particular day where they both got laid off, I do recall hearing them being called into the office of the boss, and maybe like an hour later, I guess Tommy, who is supposedly the finance guy, he was like, "Oh, okay, I'm leaving. I'm not gonna be here anymore. You guys have a good life." And I'm like, what's going on? And then he called in the other guy, Lonnie, or the marketing guy, right? And then like a few minutes later, he's like storming out and shit, and I'm like, what the hell's going on, right? So then, like toward the afternoon, we had a team meeting or something, and then he's like, "Okay, I had to make some, because my boss is French. Okay, I had to make some very, very. I'm actually, I'm not even sounding French. How do I make a French accent? Okay, so I had to make. Okay, he didn't have that type of energy. He was like, I had to make very tough decisions. So I had to let a couple people go. And I'm thinking to myself, fuck yeah! You know, everybody was like sad and shit. And I couldn't show my true emotions. But when I found out that Lonnie got laid off, I'm thinking to myself, fuck yeah, right? But I couldn't show my face, so I had to be like, oh my god. I couldn't show my true emotions, so I had to be like, oh my god, that's so terrible. I had to show my that's so terrible expression. You know, like I'm just so like I was just so disturbed by this news. But in my head I'm like dancing and shit. I'm like, yeah, fuck that guy. But anyways, the point I'm trying to make what's the point I'm trying to make about this? The point I'm trying to make is that it has been going downhill a lot. And once I started realizing, okay, people, you know, my bosses, we're not making enough sales. He's slowly cutting people off. That triggered in my mind that, oh shit, okay, I don't think I have job security in this place. So that was like the main trigger that made me want to go and try to pursue other opportunities. So for the last couple of weeks, you probably heard that loud ass truck in the back. Hopefully you haven't, but it's loud and it's really annoying. And it's 7:44 in the morning on a Saturday, and you got to drive a big loud ass truck down like an apartment complex. Really, you got to do that? In any case, point I was trying to make about the job is, or what was happening for the last couple of weeks, like people just leaving work, people being cut or being laid off, and just recently, another developer decided just to leave because apparently by his explanations, or what the project manager disclosed to me, is that he left because he felt like the job was too stressful. So a lot of pivotal people that made up this application and know how it works are leaving, which makes me feel like this company only has so much life to live. I don't know. I mean, they did hire two more new people. One was like a Georgian guy, and his name is like, oh, I can't say real people's names. Let's say his name. Okay, it doesn't really matter his name. And then they hired another person too, and that's cool and shit. But I don't know. Like once they started downsizing, I was already unhappy about the idea of just getting up to go to work and always worrying about how bad I smell and all this other crap. Now there's this possibility that I might lose my job if we don't get enough sales. So after that, I decided to start going on Indeed and going to a lot of jobs, applying for a lot of jobs on Indeed and LinkedIn, especially LinkedIn. And it's so funny, within LinkedIn, you have this option to alert that you're looking for new opportunities. So I just clicked this button like that, and I got flooded. Like in a couple of days, I got flooded with so many different recruiters about certain jobs, and I'm like, oh my god, so much to the point that I can't even keep up with half of them. Because it's like I get up at like, I go to work at like 8 and I leave at like maybe 6 or maybe 6:30. So I'm at the office like for like 16 hours, and then when I finally come home, I have less than 3 hours to do anything. So I have to check emails, respond to people, do certain interviews. I had to do a lot of interviews or a lot of calls with recruiters on my lunch break and shit like that. So I guess it's a good thing that recruiters are contacting me for job opportunities, but it's sort of getting sort of stressful, especially because within a lot of these opportunities or job opportunities, especially if you're talking about web development, there's 3 phases, right? It's sort of randomized because there's not a distinct way of how every employer does it, but there's coding assessment for one stage, right? And then there's like a technical interview. where you actually see the hiring manager or possible developers within the interview. And then the third one is like the final interview where they narrow it down, and then they try to figure out who's going to get this job offer, right? And for many of my opportunities, they've been recruiters like, oh yeah, you're a perfect fit for this job coming up, and what I need you to do is, I need you to do a coding assessment. I'm like, okay, no problem, right? Within the first 2 weeks, they're like, okay, I just need you to do a coding assessment. But after I've been talking and communicating with so many different recruiters, and possibly sometimes having conversations with the employers themselves, and each one of them wants me to do some type of coding assessment, I'm like, I'm like chock full of so many different coding assessments. I have a queue of different coding assessments that they want me to do, and I only have so much time. Like I said, I only have so much time within the day to do one coding assessment, because like each coding assessment is like an hour or so long. Some say, oh, it only takes 30 minutes. For the average person taking 30 minutes, it takes me an hour to do. You feel me? So it's like after I come home after a hard day at work, or just a boring day of work, let's be honest, because most of the work is boring, I had to get up and muster enough strength to do a coding assessment, and then after that, I had to go to sleep. And I don't know, just doing coding assessment after coding assessment after coding assessment, and then still knowing that there's still tons of other coding assessments you haven't done, and there's like an expiration date or a deadline to actually do this coding assessment. It starts getting really stressful. I remember there was this one interview I had, or possibility I had, to get into Kroger. There was this recruiter, and he was like, hey, I saw your resume, you look good enough for this position at Kroger. And I'm like, oh shit, I could have opportunity at Kroger, this is awesome. All you gotta do is do this assessment. I did the assessment. It's like, oh, it's probably only gonna take an hour. That shit took me 2 hours to do, bro. And the first 3 questions weren't that hard, but the fourth question was just it wasn't difficult, but there were just so many steps and conditions that you had to remember. And I was like, oh my God, I'm not gonna remember this shit. But I finally got it done. All the tests were passing and good. I'm like, okay, cool. And then it's like, okay, great. So now I need you to do another thing. I need you to do this virtual interview where you're asked a set of questions, and then you have like a 2-minute response time to answer these questions. So I do it. Cool. And then I sit it back. I'm like, okay, cool. Then he comes back. Oh, my bad. You were not actually supposed to do that particular video interview. You're supposed to do another video interview. So I'm like, Jesus fucking Christ, how many video interviews I gotta fucking do? So then I do the third or the second video interview. But in this second video interview, they have a specific coding challenge where it was basically, the question was asking, there was this string or this pattern of numbers, and these pattern of numbers, you're supposed to be able to look at these pattern of numbers and determine, based on the index of that number, what is the number going to be within that pattern of numbers, because the pattern of numbers had 0, 1, and 2, and they were arranged in a certain way, and you're supposed to determine, okay, based on this pattern of numbers, I'm supposed to be able to determine what is going to be the index number of this pattern. Is it going to be 0, 1, or 2? But the thing is, it was 30 minutes, and I kept reading it over and over and over, and I got it. I understood it toward the later end, but even then, I couldn't understand what the pattern was. Like, because it looked like the pattern was just randomized numbers of 0, 1s, and 2s. There wasn't anything distinct about this pattern where I can say, okay, based on this pattern, I can determine that if the third number of this pattern is going to be 0, 1, or 2. And that just pissed me off, and it made me realize that many of these jobs, if we were thinking about like major corporations or well-known companies like Kroger or like FANG jobs like Facebook, they're gonna have like the hardest coding challenges ever, which makes me think to myself, I think the thing that I always mess up on is essentially the coding assessments. The virtual interviews where they ask me questions, I don't think I have a problem with that. But the coding challenges, I'm just so bad at. And now I have to figure out if I have to allocate time into learning how to get better at coding assessments, while at the same time applying, while at the same time trying to have these personal conversations with recruiters. I just feel stressed out. And just recently, I had 2 interviews yesterday. I had to interview this one company called Intertech Alchemy and another company called Ameriprise Financial. Both of these interviews were night and day differences. So for the Intertech Alchemy, these guys were very laid back. First off, it was a 2-hour interview, which is like, holy shit, 2 hours? That's what I was thinking to myself. But the thing about it was, with Intertech Alchemy, these guys were laid back. It seemed like they were very laid back, very friendly. They didn't mind if you didn't know a lot of things. So they weren't as critical. They weren't really critical if you didn't know all the things you needed to know. And that was just welcoming. So, because with a lot of interviews whenever you go to an interview, you're always stressed out. But they came with a certain type of energy where it seemed as though it's okay if you don't know certain things, which was a relief. And though it was 2 hours, it was broken up into 3 sections. So I had to meet like the front end team, I had to meet the back end team, and then I had to meet like the managers of one of the managers of IT, one of the managers who's just managing like the whole team, and then the HR lady. And even throughout all those sections of just seeing, like, I would say I met up with like 9 people in total. And even though there were so many people, I can gather that all these guys just seemed friendly and laid back. They were just friendly and laid back as hell. But when I think about the other interview I had, was like immediately after. So the Intertech one started at 2 and was supposed to end at 4. And then the other interview was supposed to start at 4. So I was still doing the interview with Alchemy, and I had to cut it short, and I had to say, hey, I gotta leave because I had to do another interview. So I was technically late for the other interview, but only by 2 minutes. It wasn't like I was like for 30 minutes. It was only like 2 minutes, right? But when I got to the other interview, it was a 9-day difference. Like I said before, the other interview or the previous interview was just very welcoming, very human, very friendly. The other one was like cold and more critical of me about shit. First off, this was like a virtual interview, right? And in this interview, or the Ameriprise interview, they didn't show their faces at all. I'm the only one who had my face cam, my video cam up, and I'm trying to like stimulate conversation with them, like, hey, how's it going? How's your week, right? And they're just, it is fine. It is fine. I had a good week, or whatever. So, and I'm like, okay, whatever, right? So then they just go into questioning me about my React skills, and they would ask me many different things about, I don't know, anything that's related to React, and they give me scenarios about, asking me scenarios of what would I do under these certain circumstances and shit. And that's fine, but the way that they asked me things, first off, they had a heavy accent, and they talked fast, and their microphones weren't that good. There was this one guy who didn't even have really good audio, so I had to lean in to hear what he had to say. So they would talk fast, have heavy accents, and their mics were fucked up. So they'd be talking really fast like this. Just tell me about the and tell me about it. I'm like, wait, what? So tell me about this component, and if you did this, what would you do under these circumstances? And I'm like, did you ask me what would I do if I did X, Y, Z? No, I didn't ask you that. I didn't ask you that. And I'm like, oh shit, oh my bad. And it was just like bad energy. It just seemed like in the first 5 minutes, they already determined that they didn't like me. So, at the portion where they start asking, oh, or do you have any questions for me? I asked like 2 or 3 questions, but then I'm like, you know what, I don't give a shit, and I just bounced. So hopefully from the other guys, the previous guys, it seemed as though they liked me, but who knows. In any case, I'm gonna end it right here. Yeah, that's it.